What's going on, people? Jason here, and today I'm putting together a state of phones in 2024 video, specifically phones at $100. I'm doing this with some help from the NUU A15, a $115 phone. I've actually already worked with NUU on a previous video covering their A25. It had a 120Hz OLED screen and an underscreen fingerprint reader, all at $170, so I'm interested to see how their A15 model can represent phones around $100 in 2024. Kicking things off with performance, the NUU A15 is powered by the Helio G36 and 4GB of RAM, a combo that gets you reliable everyday performance, but also a decent amount of hiccups and glitches. At the same time, these internals are capable of carrying out 80 to 90% of what you need to do on a phone, functionally speaking, so besides the lack of smoothness, there's no real limitation with what you can actually do on the phone. From my experience web browsing, scrolling social media, and just generally navigating the UI, this phone's able to handle anything you throw at it just with a lack of responsiveness. And actually, talking about responsiveness, this phone does offer one thing I've never seen before at this price: a high refresh rate screen at 90Hz. Now, to be clear, this phone is not always refreshing at 90Hz, but ever so often there'll be a simple UI element and the phone will ramp up to 90Hz, and it'll just be a breath of fresh air. And that falls into an overall good performance package in the NUU A15, sitting at just over $100. Let's move on to the screen. The size here is 6.5 inches with an HD+ resolution. This screen isn't a showstopper by any means. There's definitely visible blacks due to it being IPS instead of OLED, and the resolution isn't the crispiest, but at the same time, it's a fully functional screen that looks pretty decent when you aren't comparing it to top-of-the-line phone screens. The colors and contrast are acceptable, and really if you just put down your pride with having to have the most vibrant screen and not having to put your hand up to provide some shade while using the phone in the sun, then this phone will be just fine for you. The software this screen is displaying is a pretty unskinned version of Android 13, and this is good for any phone, not necessarily just a phone at this price. This was the latest version of Android when I received the phone. Android 13 is probably what this phone is stuck with though, as I wouldn't expect too many software updates from a small company, and honestly, the lifespan of this phone probably wouldn't last that many software updates anyway. That's all I'm going to say for software though. You can see in the B-roll for yourself how skinned it is, which is not much at all, and I feel like we all have a pretty good grasp on Android as an operating system. So let's move on to the design, and for this I'm going to actually grab the phone real fast. So as you can see, it's a pretty inoffensive slab phone design with a flat back and front and also sides, and a pretty significant chin on the front under the screen. The overall screen to body ratio isn't amazing. The entire phone is made out of plastic, and the front camera is a water drop style as opposed to a hole punch. It's also worth mentioning the cameras on the back don't stick out much at all. There's also no bar or island, and on the front you do get a screen protector pre-applied. Definitely appreciate NUU doing that. So really, the design of the NUU A15 is like you took the A25 and sucked $55 out of its budget to make the screen to body ratio worse and the overall footprint less sleek, but at the price it's totally fine, and I'd actually say good. So I mentioned these guys right here, the cameras, when talking about the design and specifically how shallow they are, and as a general rule of thumb, the more a camera module extends from the back of the phone, the more light it's going to be able to receive and the better pictures it's going to take, simply because optics requires that in order to have a bigger aperture, the camera has to physically become longer too. But this guy's so shallow it's practically flush with the back of the phone, and that's representative of the photo and video quality here. Honestly, putting aside how much the camera module sticks out, when it comes to phones at this price that are new in age and condition, there's no good camera quality out there. The videos will always be shaky with bad exposure and focus adjusts and noise levels, and the photos will always look deep fried. It literally looks like you took a low resolution version of the actual photo and tried to compensate for that by applying sharpening and other processing, but to an extreme degree that just makes it look bad. That's honestly the story of camera quality with phones at this price though, and even ranging up to $200 or so. And again, I'm talking about phones that released at this price range, and not more expensive phones that dropped in price over time. If you want good photo and video quality, that latter option is beyond a shadow of a doubt the better way to go. Starting to round out the review, this phone has a fingerprint reader embedded in the power button. I find it pretty reliable from my experience and definitely good to have at the price. That'll also be your main unlock method, as there's no face unlock included in this phone, and this phone has a 4180 mAh battery. That's a decent capacity, and considering there's no piece of hardware on this phone that's particularly demanding, you do get good battery life on the A15. And this phone offers 128 gigs of storage. So that brings us to the end of the video, and my first time reviewing a phone under 150 bucks since not last summer, but the summer before that. Since then, things have changed and improved, and it's been great to try out the NUU A15 to see what 115 bucks gets you in 2024. I know I bring it up all the time, but remember the law of diminishing returns, where you add more and more to your budget but get less and less when it comes to upgrades. And so by this relationship, when you pick cheap phones like the A15, you get better value for money. But let me know if you'd pick up this phone if your budget was around $100. Subscribe down below for more quality tech videos, and I'll see you later.